It begins with death, and it ends with death. Endo Shusaku's novel, Deep River, is a story of the desire for life in the midst of death. It is about human spirituality and one Christian's contemplation of the place of Jesus in the midst of all of it. On one layer, this novel is about Japanese tourists touring India, exploring the birthplace of Buddha, called Shakyamuni. But much of the novel occurs in Varanasi, with a specific focus on the river Ganges. The tour that these Japanese people are on starts off with an interest in Buddhist sites, but it quickly gets overtaken by their interest in this Hindu holy river. Each member of the cast feels something within them drawing them to the river. But to get there, Shusaku gives each of those people a chapter of their own, an exploration into that deep feeling that brings them to the river. Isobe, Mitsuko, Otsu, Numara, and Kiguchi all get focused looks at their lives, while Inami and the Sanjos, a newlywed couple, are only explored as secondary characters. Of these, Shusaku puts a lot of focus on Mitsuko and Otsu. Their relationship represents the core of the theological struggle of the book. Otsu is the embodiment of Jesus in the book, and he is a stand-in for Shusaku's message. Otsu is a Japanese Christian who pursues a career as a Catholic priest. He studies in France, but finds European Christianity distasteful and unbearable. His Japanese mind cannot relate to the European dogmatism, so he leaves and finds himself here in Varanasi. At the center of Otsu's character, and at the same time the center of this book, is a citation from Isaiah 53, and it reads as follows: "He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with sorrow. And as one from whom others hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him of no account. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases, and yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted." This is one of the messianic expectations in the Hebrew Bible, and it is often used to talk about Jesus. Shusaku also does that, but he does it through the embodiment in Otsu. Otsu was rejected by his fellow Japanese students, including Mitsuko, whom he had a fling with. In fact, Mitsuko is the character who reflects on this passage throughout the story, and along with it comes her insults of Otsu and his god, whom they call the Onion. Otsu was rejected by French Catholics when studying abroad because he believed with an existential conviction that God has many faces and is seen through all religious expressions. That syncretism is something the Catholic Church could not abide. So now he finds himself here in India. He is literally carrying the dying and the sick on his back to their deaths, to give them to the Lord of life, so that they may live again in rebirth. But Otsu isn't some kind of covert agent, only using the Hindu systems to overthrow and dismantle it and replace them with Catholic ones. To understand why, we need to look at Otsu and Shusaku's view of the Ganges. Shusaku explains it in the following way. Japan follows Shinto Buddhism, and so they see India as the source or ancestor of their religious expression. To go to India is to return to the spiritual roots of Japan. In India, the tourists find themselves enamored with the Hindu religion, not Buddhism. It is as if Shusaku is saying, by going back to the roots of Shinto Buddhism, we find it springing out of Hinduism, out of this deep river. Shusaku, as a Japanese Christian, is exploring the roots of his own spirituality by tracing it back to the Ganges. And he spends some time contrasting it with human religion and human violence. He rejects the Catholic Church, and the infighting between the Hindus and the Sikhs grab his attention in the novel. But by contrast, the river Ganges is treated as the source of spirituality, the mother of faith. Shusaku uses this metaphor of a mother to describe the Ganges, and he compares it with Europe's mother, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Moreover, he intentionally sets his novel at the same time as the assassination of Indira Gandhi, the first female Prime Minister of India. When she is killed, the Hindus cry out, "Our mother is dead! Our mother is dead!" Furthermore, the tourists also explore some statues of Indian gods and goddesses. One of these is Chamunda, a withered and decrepit mother, whose right leg is festered with leprosy, whose belly is caved in from hunger. She endures all these ills and pains, yet she offers milk from her sagging breasts to mankind. Shusaku uses the mother imagery and connects it with death to explore spirituality. From the beginning of their lives to their final embrace in death, the mother is with her children. Or to strip the metaphor of its beauty, the love of God is with humans through Jesus. This blend of mother and death, spirituality and death, is seen in the river itself. It is holy and it is polluted. A Westerner might see that as a contradiction, but for Shusaku it is the very point. Life and death are mixed together. People purify themselves in the same water that contains the cremated remains of the dead. People wash themselves as carcasses float by. That is spirituality. But at its core, this is still a Christian reflection. The river is the deep river of humanity's sorrows, and it is also the river of life that flows from the throne of God and covers the whole earth. And Jesus stands at its banks, as seen through Otsu. Otsu carries the dead and the dying to the river so they can live again. Otsu is the man of grief who carries our sorrows as he carries these dying humans. He is the wellspring of life as he brings them to the river of life. Life, death, and rebirth are all carried on his shoulders. For Otsu, Jesus' betrayal and death taught his disciples what it meant to love, and afterwards they lived a life of love. And Otsu can say to Mitsuko, "If that man were here in the city now, if the onion came to this city, he of all people would carry the fallen on his back and take them to the cremation grounds, just as he bore the cross on his back while he was alive." It is as if there are two rivers woven together. The river of human sorrows is mixed with the river of God's love, where life and death mingle together. And at its center stands Jesus on the cross. For all of Shusaku's message of God's many faces, it's really not striking me as an advocation for a relativism of religious revelation. I think he's actually saying something different. No one in this book converts religions. Religious systems are condemned. Their institutions and traditions are rejected. All the while, Otsu remains a Catholic priest, outcast but Christian still. He says he is gripped by Jesus and cannot be let go. So Shusaku is not writing about rejecting Christianity or adopting Hinduism or Buddhism. What he is doing is that he is saying you can see Jesus through the entirety of human spirituality. And he is seen most clearly where death, life, and the desire for rebirth meet. Shusaku takes us back to the source of Japanese spirituality by going back to the river Ganges. And it is as if he is drawing his reader back to the beginning of human spirituality and says, it all flows from Jesus, it contains pieces of him as it does. And when it arrives at its end, it comes back into his arms. Jesus is the mother of human spirituality, and Jesus on the cross embraces humans at their death and gives them rebirth. The source and the end of all human spirituality is this: God's unconditioned love. Love without requirements, love without terms and conditions, love without expectations, a love that asks for nothing, but gives everything, and most importantly, a love that does not ask the other person to change. It is after finishing this novel that this last idea sticks out most poignantly. The unconditioned love of God does not ask the human to change. But when the human is confronted by the deep river, the deep parts of their own sorrow cry out. We humans are the dying Indian, who in the face of death is asked to be brought to the river for rebirth. And Jesus is the one who carries us to the river on his back. Anyway, that is The Deep River by Endo Shusaku, or at least a very brief reflection on it. As a novel, I loved it. It started slow, but soon enough, it was so gripping I couldn't put it down. I thought his Christian reflection was actually really beautiful. If you have read this novel, what are your thoughts on it? But that is all I have to share with you today, so take care.